So I've seen this conversation show up on Twitter about what would potentially be the fighting game roster for a theoretical Sonic the Hedgehog fighting game. And if you know me, you know I kind of got a little feeling for the little blue little dude. So, wait, that's actually low-key weird. Why would I say that? But on some real stuff, I think I've perfectly articulated what would be the greatest lineup for a Sonic the Hedgehog fighting game. And let's get into it. So, first things first, let's go ahead and talk about our base roster. I don't think you can have a fighting game roster that doesn't feature Sonic the Hedgehog, Amy Rose, Tails, and Knuckles, right? Let's get the big four out the way. These four are the most definite, easy to pick in any lineup. In fact, I would argue your game is DOA. It is dead on arrival if you don't have Sonic, Amy, and Tails, and Knuckles as your starting four. But there is a little bit more. After all, this is a fighting game, and when conceptualizing this list, I kind of went out of like the idea of, okay, well, let's say that theoretically speaking, we finally get I don't want to say a 2D fighter, because I feel like a 2D fighter for this franchise would be very, very limiting, and I know a lot of people hate arena fighters, but truthfully, I think if Sega locked in, they can give us something a little bit unique, something a little bit different, something a little bit inspired by Sonic Battle, but obviously not to that same extent. Now, with that in mind, this is going to impact some character choices, but we'll get into that later. So, as I mentioned before, we got Sonic, Amy, Tails, Knuckles, Eggman, obviously. And this is going to be a little bit of a wild card pick, but I also decided to throw in Zavok, as in Zavok from the Deadly Six. Listen, from what we've seen from Sonic Racing Cross Worlds and from his inclusion into the franchise since that point, I feel like it is unfortunate, depending on how you feel about Zavok, that he is going to in some way, shape, or form be a reoccurring character in the spin-offs. Whether you like it or not, his character is popular from what I've seen. Furthermore, these two are low-key kind of a toss-up. I decided to throw in Big the Cat because truthfully, I think Big the Cat would be he would either be a grappler or like a set play zoner. I could see Big having some funny moves involving him utilizing his fishing rod. So kind of real froggy, like around the place. I don't know. I feel like they can truthfully get creative with that. But I don't know. Actually, hold on. Was I tweaking by putting him in? No. We're gonna rock with it. And then Eggpon is going to be our training character, or not our training. He is going to be our joke character because truthfully, do you have a fighting game if you don't got a joke character in it? No, you don't. And then finally, Rouge the Bat. But remember, these are all starting roster, meaning you boot the game up, this is who you see now. Depending on how you feel, I may or may not have kind of bloated the unlockable content in this game, because truthfully, I think a lot of people would enjoy having a fighting game where you can unlock the characters, obviously through some sort of story mode, arcade mode, whatever Sega decides to imagine up in this deal. But that is our base starting roster upon booting the game up. But let's go into our unlockable characters. So first and foremost, we got the boy Shadow the Hedgehog. Now Shadow, I mean, I'm gonna keep it real with you. You could kind of move it around, and even to be completely honest with you, in this unlockable character tier, you could low-key move and change with the base roster, but I kind of wanted to add some like, oh shit moments, like, oh cool, something that you would be happy with unlocking in the game, and I feel like Shadow is definitely easily on that list. Now Vector, Charmy, and Espio are my next three picks, and again, it all comes down to what type of game is this that they're creating. If it is going to be that Sonic Battle kind of distant spiritual successor that I mentioned beforehand, they're great to be separate characters. But if we're going to take this in the vein of like a competitive 2D fighter like like Dragon Ball FighterZ, I truthfully believe that you can make these a very silly trio character, right? You could have them all interact and appear in each other's moves, but I don't think that it would be a good idea to make a modern day Sonic game without having Team Chaotix in there in some way, shape, or form. I wanted to hit on characters that are very, very popular and very, very prevalent within the franchise in the modern day and age, and so they gotta be here. E123 Omega, hey, if we need a for real dedicated zoner, like straight basic, I'm thinking he's gonna be like Happy Chaos and Guilty Gear Strive, something akin to that. But depending on how you feel about Happy Chaos, that might be the worst thing I've ever said in my entire life. Silver the Hedgehog, once again, I don't think you can successfully release a game where the main Hedgehog trio, even though they haven't really been relevant since Sonic 06, but I don't think you can release a game in which Shadow, Sonic, and Silver are not the base roster in some way, shape, or form. I think having Silver be unlockable within the game's story mode, again, hey, I love a good fighting game story mode, and I think people would enjoy that. And along with that, I brought back the boy General. Hey, if this is a Sonic Battle spiritual successor, you can't have it without him. Come on now. Sage is there to represent Frontiers, because Frontiers is the game that pushed the franchise in a new direction. I think it would be pretty wild to low-key not have Sage be a part of the Frontiers representation in this game, because you know there's going to be at least a stage or two. And actually, I might have done something crazy, so ignore that, because I just cooked in my head. Okay. So, next up we got Blaze. Come on, Blaze is an easy pick. Like, come on, there's only, before, if we don't have Blaze, and not including Sage, we got like 2 women in the roster. Come on, we need at least a third one. And then furthermore, we got Trip for that Sonic Superstars representation. Truthfully, I believe Sega would probably be interested in wanting to cross-promote / push Sonic Superstars a little bit more, even if that game allegedly underperformed. But hey, I think this is a solid base roster. You know, this is what you get when you boot the game up. So far, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. A solid 19 character lineup, depending on if this is the Sonic Battle spiritual successor, which I think would probably be at least a little bit easier to develop for, or alternatively, if this is something more akin to the likes of a 2D fighter. I think having a 19 character starting lineup for a new game in a franchise is going to be phenomenal. But we still got more characters on this list. So for the install / transformation tier, I was thinking these characters have install supers. Think of your why is the most iconic dragon install. You imagine your dragon installs. I think that would be very cool. Your dragon installs, your golden Frieza transformation from fighters, things of that nature. And so I kind of went with the easy picks, and even though one of these is a spoiler, because you're like, where's Neo Metal Sonic? We'll get to him. But we got Super Sonic, Burning Blaze, and Super Silver. Now, this might be a little crazy because you're like, where is Shadow? But allow me to introduce the next tier, reference in a special move. Now, this might be crazy, but I think these are characters you can kind of sneak in representation for through a super move. Think of when GT Goku does his level 3 in Fighters and Super Saiyan 4 Goku appears for a little bit. That's what I was kind of cooking. So we have Metal Overlord, which, come on now. We need Heroes representation. Come on, that game was amazing. I may or may not be lying. Whoa, that is a crazy But we got Supersonic 2 and Supersonic Cyber. I don't even know if that's what it's really called. But again, we need that Frontiers representation. I feel like, and if anything, if these 2 forms don't appear in a fighting game, we're never going to see them again. I highly doubt they're never going to be mentioned. Or I highly believe that these 2 forms are never going to be mentioned again in literally anything in the rest of the franchise. Then we got Froggy. Froggy's only in this tier because I was thinking Froggy would be a part of Big's moveset, but I didn't want to cause confusion and like throwing him in the with Big the Cat in the Fighters base roster tier, but that's what I was thinking. And now we got the rest of the Deadly Six. Obviously, whatever super move Zavok has, all 3 of them are going to show up. Come on now, let's be a little bit serious now. Furthermore, we got Devil Doom and Doom's Eye. Listen, we'll get to Doom. And what I believe to be probably the most controversial decision on this list being referenced in a special move for Super Shadow. And the reasoning why I put him in this tier is because personally to me, I think Shadow already having, like, if he was to get an install, I feel like it would involve him utilizing his inhibitor rings, which have very seldom been mentioned or appeared in the franchise. And to me, having given him like some type of burst mode, or if the game has like a burst system for Shadow, his animation could be like him taking off his inhibitor rings. I think that would be cool, and I'm keeping it real. I wish they got more of an opportunity to shine instead of like just his super move. But I do think, again, having Super Shadow, he needs to be mentioned in some way, shape, or form into this game, and I think having him be a special move would be cool, right? But you could argue that you could do the same for all the install supers, and I would not disagree, except Neo Metal. I feel like Neo Metal works the best as an install super. And so we have the 2 of the Wisp, the Yellow Wisp and Yacker. Yacker would probably show up in, like, I don't know, maybe one of Tails' moves. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. But I feel like maybe as like a stage background, but Yellow Wisp is here. Imagine all the Wisp here because I was too lazy to drag them all up. But hey, they definitely would be mentioned. Along with Orbot and Cubot, again, Eggman's in the roster. They're probably gonna be like, if they're not like a part of his moveset in some way or like physically on his character, I think that they would probably be represented in the game, maybe through as like a commentator track akin to what you would see in Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. But hey, that was just my suggestion. Again, we got Super Neo Metal Sonic. Again, I think that'd be fire. Super Trip, these two obviously being referenced in a special move because I don't really see a way that you can really build out a whole new moveset for these guys. And Cheese is here for what we'll mention later, along with Giant Zavok from IDW. And that would be the reference in the special moves here. But now we move further down. I saw a lot of debate about what would Sega do for a newsletter, and I'm keeping it real. I would think that Sega would use that opportunity to throw in some fan favorite classic characters into that newsletter, and those two would probably be Bean and or Honey the cat, who was in the original Sonic Fighters. So I think it'd be great to bring both of them back in some way, shape, or form. But again, I'm picking the low effort. You know, if the character's not in the game, I wouldn't exactly lose sleep over it, but it'd be cool if they were. And this is like low-key my optional my optional troll pick slash joke bit. Obviously IOP DLC code. We got Cream the Rabbit again. Would Sega want you to beat up what is supposed to be interpreted as an 8-year-old little girl? No idea. That's for them to figure out. If they do, I think she would be included in the roster. She could take maybe Big or Egg Pawn slot as a guest character, but I think Cream could do a lot of silly shit. Some people have suggested the idea that she could use Cream or not Cream, I'm so sorry, Cheese as like some sort of like puppet, or like maybe commanding the Chow, and then hey, we'll get some Chow representation. But it depends on how like serious this game is going to be. Is it going to be a little bit lighthearted, goofy? And Cream was in the original Sonic battle, so hey. But now we go to the DLC section, and to me, I feel like I might have cooked the best thing possible. So you might have noticed in the base game roster that there is a lack of villains, and low-key you can kind of change around, but I'm keeping it real. If you are a mainstay hero in the franchise, I'm not. No way in hell you're gonna be DLC. And I kind of went about it through the perspective of what would I as like a consumer, an enjoyer of Sonic the Hedgehog as a franchise, what would I personally buy as a DLC for this game? So pack one, we're gonna go with, let me reorganize this a little bit. You might have seen Chaos if I didn't edit him out of being in the Unlockable, but I feel like DLC 1, Metal Sonic and Chaos. I think that's a solid lineup. We have some of the most iconic Sonic villains. We have literally Sonic's rival, and there are hella Metal Sonic fans, Metal Sonic shooters. I mean, just look at the death battle that came out last year. People love Metal Sonic, and I feel like you put him in a cool reveal trailer. That's, hey, hold on, wait, they got Metal in this game, and he looks cool, right? You can give him some like that Android 21 effect in Dragon Ball FighterZ, where she can like take certain moves. I think that'd be a really cool character. And obviously we got Chaos, and I should have put Perfect Chaos in the reference in the special move, but I'm being real. I think this is a solid enough lineup to convince people to, hey, you might want to invest in the game. Now DLC 2, Mephiles the Dark and Black Doom, two of the most iconic villains from the dark age, in quotation marks, of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. I'm thinking, hey, as someone who is like outside of it, I think if Mephiles shows up and he is DLC in the game, I'm buying his ass. Black Doom, I'm buying his ass. Then that's what you got to think about. What would generate the most hype? What would get people to actually want to buy into this DLC? And when I think about it from that perspective, along with thinking about characters who would be interesting enough to even include in the roster, I'm thinking Mephiles and Black Doom, you know, some of the most iconic villains in this franchise that are not named Eggman. I think they would be great picks, and they would generate enough hype for people to be interested enough in the DLC. Now these next two waves, I'm gonna keep it real with you. I was low-key kind of struggling for picks. So for DLC 3, we're gonna go with Leloin and Surge. And I feel like IDW would definitely get some representation in this DLC, seeing how they're also getting representation in Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. And I'm being real, Surge was an easy pick. No idea for that second pick. Maybe like Tangle and Whisper. I got nothing, gang. I literally got nothing. I haven't even read IDW at the recording of this video, so like maybe I'll read it and I'll come back to that with some cool picks. But hey, there we go. And then finally DLC for the Babylon Rogues. And maybe I was tweaking for this because the way I was envisioning it in my head is, hey, depends on what type of game this is. You know, if this is a traditional fighter, like 2D fighter, we could also have Jet and Wave, with Wave and Storm showing up in super moves, or they can be like a Ginyu Force tag fighter, something that I low-key suggested for the Chaotix, but I don't think that whatever dev team would be making this game would be interested in having two kind of characters with the same kind of gimmick a little bit. So I could see Jet just being a solo act with Wave and Storm as supporting moves, but I think for a year one lineup, this is probably a solid roster lineup. I would be willing to spend money on this. But now let's talk about some exclusions from the list that I feel are valid enough pointing out. In the not happenings here, we got Vanilla. If anything, she would show up in a Cream Super or maybe a General Super. That's about it. Maybe Vector will get on his hands and knees and start talking about Bugatti for Charmy to walk in and be like, Bugatti? I thought Vector drives a beat up Corolla. Okay. And then we got Takal. Takal not showing up because from what I've gathered, Sega do not want anything to do with that woman. They don't give a fuck. They want her dead in the ditch. They're not interested in anything about her or that era because, you know, in universe, she is dead. Same thing with Maria. That's also why they're in the not happening, LOL. Eggman nigga, let's be real, he's going to be a skin if anything else. Zero cannot come up with an interesting enough moveset for that brother. Same thing with E101 and the other. And it sucks because I love Gamma. I love you. Yeah, E102 Gamma, but like, let's be real. They what would you give him that would be different from Omega? I don't want characters feeling super samey, and I know this is the same franchise with like 5 niggas who could do a homing attack, but to keep it real with you, especially, I already don't like zoners, so like we don't need multiple again. Then we get into Sonic Man. I've seen Sonic Man will be a great guest character, a great joke character. A great joke character. They would not put his ass in that game. I like with modern day Sega, maybe if this was like the Sega of 2017 where they were heavy in like the meme era, I think maybe back then they would have been interesting enough in having Sonic Man be represented as like a joke, but not happening. And the same thing with the Sonic super forms, Werewolf or Werehog Sonic again. I don't want to have this turn into a situation like Dragon Ball FighterZ where there's like 5 different versions of one character. Even though in Fighters they all play differently, I don't think Sonic has that range or that quite expansive of a moveset to warrant having multiple versions. I think if anything, you make Super Sonic a separate character if you don't want to go with the install / transformation super. But again, and out of these 3, unfortunately, I would love to have Excalibur Sonic in this game, but it would realistically, unfortunately, to me at least, be the Werehog. And I think that would be my dream roster. And again, I went with what would be realistic. Okay, if I wanted to go balls to the wall crazy, I would put stupid shit like fucking I put in Sticks, fucking Boom Sonic. I put in specific Sonic, Silver Sonic, a Neo Metal Sonic specifically from fucking Archie. Like, come on now. But hey, that is what I would interpret to be a pretty solid roster lineup for this franchise. If you disagree, go ahead and let me know down below, because hey, I'm not exactly the visionary on this. And let me know what your dream roster would be. But as far as I'm concerned, this is what I got for you. And hey, keep yourself. What the fuck? Holy shit! I'm trying to do my outro. But hey, keep yourself, remember, keep yourself safe, keep everyone around you. I hope you're doing it right. I hope you're doing good, and make sure you take care of yourself above all else. And remember, have yourself a damn good one. Chain Chomp, I made ramen before this video, and now that shit cold. So I'm gonna go try to salvage it. Yomp. I might get a ticket. I might get a ticket. I might get a ticket. Trying to make it to your crib. Please, bro. Offer me your tulips on my hey, hey, hey. I'm gon' hey, 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 hey.
get my son back, and I mean real soon, you better kill yourself.